Welcome to a video from thedigital.com. In this video I'm going to show you how you can recreate the Korg M1 sounds on the Wavestate. It's a great synth for creating those classic Korg synths, the Wavestate, the Wavestation and the M1, and you can do it all directly in here. So I'm using the native version here, but this works on the rack version, the original Mark II, the SE, all the versions of Wavestate. I've already published a set of Wavestate sounds, but I'm going to show you how we recreate some of those sounds, how you can do it yourself without just using the Wavestate editor. To help me do this, I've got the M1, the M1 plugin from the Korg collection, so that I can really do this a bit more scientifically than just doing it by ear. You could do it by ear, but sometimes having this available in front of you really helps. So if you've got an M1 in front of you, even better, but this one works quite well. So the one that you heard at the start there was the Universe performance, and we can find that on here. So the one I used to demonstrate then was the Universe program. So just first to understand the way that the M1 works, and then that will help you with the sound design on the Wavestate. So the M1 had programs and combis. A combi is a combination of programs, so we're going to focus on programs on this. So here you can hear the Universe one. If I am here is the Wavestate, so you can hear actually they're pretty similar, aren't they? Okay, so let's have a look at the architecture now. We can use the browser. So we've got combis and programs. So a combi is a combination. So say film score. We're going to combi mode. You can see it's made up of the choir, tubular, strings, and piano. We go back to the browser and I select a program, the Universe one, which was demonstrated on the Wavestate. You'll see it just there adds it to this. Because we're in combi mode, it's now there as the fifth element in our combi mode. So what we need to do now is to understand what the single program is. So we can do that going into program mode, and we're in the Universe one. So here is our Universe, and here is it on the Wavestate. I've not done any sampling of this at all either. These are samples that are built into the Wavestate, so you don't have to do any sampling. So now we need to look at how the makeup of a program, and the actual the plugin makes it a bit easier to see. But you can see here we've got two oscillators and with samples, with pitch envelopes, which we can control through there. So here we are, we've got the filters, we can have the cutoff, we can do the resonance, we've got envelope control. You see here we've got our envelopes. We've got two MGs, modulators, LFOs, and mod generators, and you can choose those, and there's the other filter. That passes through to a VCA, or a VDA as they call it, and we've got the filters on that as well, so the envelopes on that, and we've got two LFOs there. And then that all goes into the effects as well. So we've got a couple of different effects modes, but essentially we've got two effects units, and you can route them in different ways in serial or parallel. So the next thing I do when I'm starting to create a performance or a preset from the M1, you want to start from scratch essentially. So let me go right back with INIT performance. So there you can see I've got an initial performance now. So now we understand the architecture of the M1, we can start to think about how we can recreate it on here. Now, because we're not, unlike the Wavestation, which does wave sequencing, the M1 is just samples. So we don't actually need wave sequencing to recreate those sounds. We might use that as a trick to do a bit of crossfading or something else. But for now, I think we'll probably be able to go into single multi-sample mode, choose the right sample and get the filters to work with it as well. Now, if we're trying to recreate something that's in the combi mode, then it's a slightly bit more difficult, slightly bit more to it. So as you see in the oscillators, we've got 2 oscillators. In the Wavestate, we've got 4 layers. So that we have to use a layer per oscillator to recreate that correctly. And then, so that's 2, and we've got 2 left. So we can build that sort of combi of 4 layers, but depending on how, if we're using the 2 oscillators for one program, we can only really combine 2 programs to create that effect. So if you've got a combi that uses 5 or 6, that's probably not, you're gonna have to make some compromises somewhere to get that to work. We're gonna stick with program for now. So here's my universe, and here's what I've currently got. I'm going to move this window slightly so I can flick between them a bit easier. So there's a couple of tricks to do. This really applies to recreating any synth. I usually take the effects off because it's easier to hear the sound without it. Now you can clearly hear 2 sort of layers on there. So if we go to the oscillators, we've got a choir and the low sound. A really handy technique on this synth, the plugin version, if you go to browse, you can actually browse them all and you can hear what it sounds like without going any filters or effects. So what you can do, you can choose the sound, so it's the choir one. If you put it on solo like that, you can hear the raw sample. So if I turn that off, here you can hear it going through the envelopes and in combination with the other layer. If you go through the browser and do it, so it actually makes it easier when you're coming to select your sound. So I can see that this is, I've got to have that one. I need the low sound as well. And there's the low sound in isolation. So tackle one at a time. So what I can do, that I can disable one of the oscillators if I wanted just to split it one at a time, but I think we're going to use one of these. And now we need to find the choir sound. Now the samples that are in here, if you go to Wavestation, they are Wavestation samples, not M1 samples. So all the Wavestation ones are in there, which might why it's easy to create Wavestation sounds. But some of the M1s are in there because they got carried over. They were in the M1 and then in the Wavestation. So we're looking for choir, and I suspect it will be in here. In fact, we're on Wavestation, so I'll probably search for it. There we go. So you've got a choir. Let's just check that. Let's go back to our choir. Okay, so those match up now. So now it's just about doing the rest of the processing. So what I'm going to do, that was at 42, wasn't it? So I'm going to disable that one. So we need to emulate that now. Okay, so let's start to evaluate that now. Now let's have a look. We've got some if I disable the LFO, makes no difference. And in fact, you can see the intensity is set down at 0. So we don't have to worry about LFO. If you had those on, you'd have to think about that. It's pretty much in these 2 envelopes here. So here we can see we've got a high attack, a decay, a sustain, and there's your release. So we can kind of replicate that. So we can go to our synthesis section. In fact, we go to the amp, we go to the amp envelope. We can recreate that. Now what we can't really do is this parameter here, this release. So we've got one value for that release, which is this time. What we haven't got is a release level like this. because the envelopes are slightly different. So you notice when you've got a release, this comes in and sort of kicks back in again. That's on the filter, and on the amp it kind of does the opposite. So I think what we're going to have to do is do that with the filter release. So we're going to have to play around to try and adjust to do this. So perhaps we might need a bit more. And let's have a look at that. Yeah, you can see that we need to slope that attack. And now we need to do that trick with the filter where we see if we can brighten it up on key release. So there's a few different ways we can do that. So let's go to the filter. We can reduce that cutoff down and apply some envelope to it. And if we go to the filter envelope, and you can see on the filter there, the initial attack drops down, and then we've got that release. So we could, let's have a look how we could do that. Now, if we just do that, we just get a long release time. So we need to try and come up with a solution to that on key release. So what I'm going to do for the note off is a little trick. I'm using a mod processor, so it's where you can get one value in, change it, and send it back out again. I'm going to apply the mod processor to the cutoff and change it to a smooth, and then got here release value. Let's have a listen. So there you go. When I release the key, you can hear it flick that volume, that release quite high. If I could smooth that a little bit. There we go, that's kind of doing the trick. Maybe I can turn this cutoff down a bit. And go back to my amp envelope. And I think I actually did have the amp envelope should do that. So that's it. Let's have a listen to the original now. Maybe I've got a little bit too shallow. So I think that's it. So that's a little trick you can use there. Okay, so now we've done that part of it, we can now focus on Oscillator 2, that low sound. Put that back to 42. It was on before. That was on 84, so we could actually solo this one. I don't think we can solo it directly. Let's lock it down. Right, so let's listen to the original. So now we need that low one. So we'll go to layer B, turn off layer 1, layer B, or layer A, and turn off layer A and go to layer B. Then we go to the synthesis. I'll go to our overview. We don't want wave sequence, we want a single sample, choose a samples. Right, to find our low sound, that one isn't actually tagged as a Wavestation, but I think we can just search for it. There we go, we've got low on there. We've got 2 to choose from. So I think that's the one that sounds closest to our original. Let's just double check. Actually, what I should say as well, low NT means no tuning thing, so it's just saying we need the tuned version. So we need that one. It doesn't sound exactly the same, but it's close enough for what we're going to do in this video to get that effect. It doesn't sound exactly the same, but it's pretty close, which is probably why it's not tagged Wavestation. Okay, so we've got that allocated now, so now we just need to look at the envelopes for that. So you can hear that pitch envelope on there. And in fact, you can see it there. So that's the main thing I think we're going to need to recreate. It doesn't see too much of a filter. The amp envelope has got a sort of a basic initial attack that it comes around. So I think we could get away with leaving that for now. And we need to recreate that pitch. So one thing we're to think of, we've got the envelope. You notice on here it goes right down, then up, and then sort of settles on 0. Our envelopes don't quite work the same way here. This is 0, so as in the right pitch. This will then go up very high or above what we want and then settle back down still too high, but we could just adjust the tuning to make sure that settle is the middle pitch. Now in terms of release, we don't want any release, but so what we need to do is make that as long as possible. We really don't want that to release at all. Another way of doing it, so let's try that first. Another way might be to try a different envelope, placing the envelope. So let's go to our tuning now. Let's apply the pitch envelope. Actually, having explained all that, this is a non-tuned sound, really, isn't it? It's not like with a piano, so it doesn't really matter that we center back to 0. We'll see. So let's listen. It's a lot higher, isn't it? So it goes a bigger range. So let's increase that range. That's a bit extreme. Maybe that's what we want. That's probably not right. Now, you can hear there is some release on that. We haven't got any release on at the moment. Now this is, so what we want to do is go to our amp envelope and add some release, but we'll hear that pitch come back down when we release. But because I set it as a really long tail, that's fine. Okay, I think that's got the effect we want now, so let's put that back. That was in the 80s, wasn't it, before? So let's bring that back in. That's not bad. So let's just go and listen to our effects. So we've got reverb and a stereo delay. So we can do something similar to that. Let's add a bit of compression. So a bit of stereo delay. And then some reverb. So I reach over and play a chord. I think we got pretty close with that. So that was a specific example of creating the universe sound from the M1 on the Wavestate, but it follows really with any of the M1 patches. The trick is finding if the sample already exists, which most of the time it does. And if you look at the sounds I've already created to M1s, you can see I've got many of the sounds in there that were on the M1. So there's a lot of sounds in there, but I found it's just a question of breaking down the patch. It helps if you've got the plugin or an actual M1. If not, just do it by ear and find the samples that you like, and you can recreate really interesting M1 type sounds on the Wavestate. It's a great synth for doing that. And of course, you've got all the other stuff that we've not used, like wave sequence and everything else. So you can make an M1 that had wave sequencing in it. You know, choices are endless and it's up to you. So thanks so much for this video. I hope you found that interesting. Please like and subscribe if you do. Check out our newsletter as well, where we get discount codes and monthly updates as well. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.